Hey, what's up, Hope everyone's doing all right. So I'm just getting kind of comfortable here and just kind of adjusting things, but whatever, I'll just go with it. So this week is week 33. It's Jeremiah 47 through Ezekiel 9. And remember, if we go through the Bible, we have it separated into about 50 different sections or 50 different sections, and we go through one section a week. 50 weeks, so there's a 52 and point something weeks in a year. So we get through the whole entire Bible, cover to cover, in 1 year, and you want to do that every single year. And you just start from the beginning, and you just go every week, and it's about 14 pages in the King James Bible, and I've separated them. And right now we're on week 33, and so it's Jeremiah 47 through Ezekiel 9. So we're finishing with Jeremiah. Jeremiah, is one of my favorite prophets. I think it's just a lot more easy to relate to, a lot more easier to read than some of the other ones. Isaiah and Ezekiel are there's a lot of visions and stuff, and so Jeremiah is just pretty much it's pretty straightforward, and it's more historical, and Isaiah and Ezekiel is a lot more, like I said, a lot more visions and a lot more prophecy, I think, that's going on than Jeremiah. And so Jeremiah is a lot more easier, like I said. And I don't know, I like how he acts, and I like the beginning of Jeremiah, and like I said, it's just easier to relate to and easier to understand. So we're ending with Jeremiah, and so at the ending of Jeremiah, because it's weird, because in the beginning of Jeremiah, it's okay, well, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon is God's servant. He's going to come and destroy all the nations and do God's work. But then after he does all that, then God's mad, or gets mad at King Babylon, the kingdom of Babylon, and King Nebuchadnezzar, and it seems now they're also going to be judged as well. And it seems to be that they, even though that they were sent, or they seem to be sent to destroy Israel, they seem to have no mercy, and they enjoyed destroying Israel. And so and at the end of the day, that's God's people. And so although they were being punished for what they did, they weren't being punished because of what they did against man. They were being punished for what they did against God. And so I guess it's well, what does man have the right to, doesn't have the right to have vengeance upon a kingdom that seemed to be betraying God, not necessarily man, but by betraying God is betraying man. And so there's just a lot of interesting kind of things there to think about and to reflect on. But it's just interesting that, it was the beginning, okay, King Babylon was King Nebuchadnezzar seems to be the good guy, and then at the end at the end of Jeremiah, then Jeremiah just spits all this prophecy about the ending of King Babylon. And so it's just kind of interesting. I find it at least very interesting. And then it talks about, after you have the ending of Jeremiah, you have the Lamentations of Jeremiah, and this is just Lamentations of both his life, the people that persecute him, and this is a little bit hard to understand, but I think it is the people that persecute him. But then he also takes Israel's standpoint. It's the standpoint of, or the Lamentations of Israel, and how Israel, he almost takes the place, or he takes the position of Israel and God's chosen people, of the Jews, and mostly the city of Jerusalem, and just the country, and then the people, and he takes the position of them, and he's he talks about how God is far from them, but that how God is justified, and how sad they are, but it's God's justifying the actions that he did. So the Lamentation of Jeremiah was obviously very interesting. And so then get to Ezekiel, and Ezekiel is just there's the beginning, there's the vision that he has with the angels, or I think they're the angels, or the four beings, the living creature went by them, the living creatures were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up, wheresoever the spirit was to go, they went, thither was their spirit to go, and the wheels were lifted up over against them, for the spirit of the living creature was in the wheels. And so he has this vision of it. But then I also like it when they actually, when the angel, there's an appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord, and when I saw it, I fell upon my face, and I heard a voice of one that spake. And he said unto me, Son of man, stand upon thy feet, and I will speak unto thee. And the Spirit entered into me when he spake unto me, and set me upon my feet. Then I heard that And the Spirit entered into me when he spake unto me, and set me upon my feet, that I heard him that spake unto me. And he said unto me, Son of man, I send thee to the children of Israel, to a rebellious nation that hath rebelled against me. They and their fathers have transgressed against me, even unto this very day. For they are an impudent children, and stiff-hearted. I do send thee unto them, and thou shalt say unto them, Thus saith the Lord God. And they, whether they will hear, or whether they will forbear, for they rebellious house, yet shall that there hath been a prophet among them. Yet shall know that there hath been a prophet among them. And thou, son of man, be not afraid of them, neither be afraid of their words. Though briars and thorns be with thee. Though briars and thorns be with thee, and thou dost dwell among scorpions, be not afraid of their words, nor be dismayed at their looks. They are, though they be a rebellious house. And thou shalt speak my words unto them, whether they will hear, or whether they will forbear, for they are most rebellious. But thou, son of man, hear what I say unto thee. Be now thou rebellious like the rebellious house. Open thy mouth and eat that I give thee. And, he talks about it, and he talks about the Jews and stuff like that. And it does seem like, but the house of Israel will not hearken unto thee, for they will not hearken unto me. For all the house of Israel are impudent and hard-hearted. Behold, I have made thy face strong against their faces, and thy forehead strong against their foreheads. As an adamant harder than flint have I made thy forehead. Fear them not, neither be dismayed at their looks, though they be a rebellious house. Moreover he said unto me, Son of man, all my words that I shall speak unto thee receive in thy heart, and hear with thy ears, and go, get thee to them of thy captivity unto the children of thy people, and speak unto them, and tell them, Thus saith the Lord God, whether they will hear, or whether they will forbear. So it seems like, God says all these things about Israel and about the Jews and stuff like that, but that's for him to say, it's not for anyone else to say. And so he just defends them when other people attack them and when they hurt them, but he deals with them. His vengeance is, his just vengeance is him to do alone. It's not for someone else to judge his people and to do that. So I find this very important. It comes to if there's another Christian and they mess up, you don't want to be you see bad things happening to them. It might not be because they messed up. God might be trying them, or they might just be in the world, and this is just the effect of being in the world. And so when a Christian, something happens to one of God's people, you don't want to be grateful that the bad thing happens in your heart, and you don't want to be mean to them because bad things are happening, because it's not for you to judge. And I think that you can see this when it comes to God judging his own people. It's for him to do. It's not for you to judge another man's servant. And in the New Testament it says that. So the different days that I have, the main events, because remember I have it Monday through Friday, and so each day is a main event through those readings that I reflect on, that I go over, so that way that my heart and my mind is reflecting on those, and so I can kind of balance myself. And so I always have something Monday through Friday that I can kind of reflect on. Saturday, Sunday, I can either go over what has been done the last week, the prior week, or I can go over what's going to be read. So kind of like I said, it recenters me, especially when I don't really know what to think about, or my mind starts wandering to places it shouldn't be wandering. And so Monday, I have, Thou art my battle axe and weapons of war. And when he says this, he's talking about the Jewish people and, what they can do, or he's talking about Judah. But I find this very interesting. I think that, when we are God's, Christian people, they're God's, his battle axe, his weapons of war. And a lot of it is just how he views his children, or how he shows other, angels, because we're made a spectacle to the angels or to other beings. He shows his will and his way of doing things, and we are to reflect that, and we are to do that. And so that's like a weapon of war, because I think that when it comes down to it, all of existence is made or broken by ideas and thoughts and actions, but the actions are based upon ideas and thoughts, and not necessarily laws, but just the way that things are, and the way that things that should be, and God's rule and God's choices that he makes. And so if you can argue that God's choices are justified and they are well done, then you're like a weapon of war against evil, against those that choose evil, and those that, because then you have a choice to choose good or bad. And so if you can convince men, if it's up for us to convince men, and maybe, and you're not really convincing angels directly, but indirectly you can convince all, you have a saying, or you can influence all of existence by arguing God's point. And arguing God's point is you become like a weapon of war when you're arguing on God's side, and that's the weapon that you are, is whatever God chooses you to be, but you're still fighting for God, and you're in the war of good versus evil. and when you're fighting with him, you're expressing his ideas, and you're defending him and showing his glory, and saying why what he's doing and the choice that he made is the right choices to do. So you become a weapon of war. So I really like that one. And Tuesday I said, my main idea that I have in the readings was, God says, "Behold, I will plead thy cause and take vengeance for thee." And I think once again he's talking about the house of Judah. And so it's just like God who is the one that's in charge, and he's the one that's going to take vengeance, and he's going to plead your cause. And so I think a lot of times, maybe you don't have to plead your cause. It's better to have God plead your cause, or Jesus plead your cause instead of you, because they're going to be able to plead your cause a lot better than you can. So why plead your own cause? And it's better to allow, Jesus to plead your cause for you instead of you trying to do it. And I think sometimes maybe, you're asked something. I think sometimes the Holy Spirit or God asks me something, or Jesus will ask me something, or a heavenly host will ask me something, and at that point I believe it's my up to me, or it's my turn, or it's kind of what God would like for me is to share my point of view, but I don't necessarily it's pleading my cause. It's more than just sharing my point of view and what I believe, and there's a fine line between the two, and sometimes maybe it is pleading your cause, but I think it's just more logical and more beneficial to allow God to plead your cause for you and those that he's appointed to do it, instead of you trying to do it yourself. And then so Wednesday I had the Lamentations of Jeremiah, and so we kind of already gone over that, and it's just something to reflect on exactly what the Lamentations are. I think it is once again Jeremiah, his Lamentation of Jeremiah himself, but Lamentations of Judah and Jerusalem and the Jews to God. But he does say about how crap his situation is, but he also talks about how deserved that God's justice is, his judgment is on the situation. And then Thursday I have Ezekiel as the main thing that I was thinking about, like I said, for Ezekiel, it's there's a lot of visions and stuff like that and prophecy that he does do, and he does this interesting thing where he sits on his side, and God tells him to sit on his side, and there's a lot of symbolism that he's supposed to do, and I find that kind of difficult thing to do. And I would imagine these visions that he has when I think he's with the Chaldeans is pretty terrible. You read it and you don't really feel like it, but I think that this would just be like a terrifying experience to have. And so it's just, I don't know, Jeremiah's existence, or the things in the Bible that Jeremiah went through, are pretty horrible, pretty terrifying. And so it doesn't, a lot of times I think doesn't talk about all the good stuff that happens to him. A lot of it talks about his work that he does. It's not necessarily the bad things or the good thing that happens to him, but the Bible is just more reflecting on the work that he does. And so I think that's kind of what it is. It's not necessarily the good things that happen to him or the bad things that happen to him that the Bible reflects on. It's just the work that he does for God, the main work that he does do, that maybe isn't portrayed in a different part of the Bible, because I don't think that it's necessarily redundant. Or I think it's useful to be redundant and say, okay, well, this prophet did this and this prophet did this, and if it's the exact same thing, then the Bible is pretty long already, and so there's no reason for people, I think, to read, the exact same thing over and over again. So there's something new about it, because you have Isaiah, you have Elijah, and Elijah's not spoke up too much in the Bible, but he did a lot of things. But I think a lot of things that he did, other prophets did too, but he did stuff that no other prophet did, and so those are the points that his work that he's done that I think that is written down. Okay, and then for Friday I have, they say the Lord seeth us not, the Lord has forsaken the earth. And so this is actually repeated twice in Ezekiel towards the ending of the reading, Ezekiel 9 or 8. And this is one of my favorite verses. And I feel like, people will say, the Lord seeth us not, the Lord has forsaken the earth. But I feel like everything seeth in the land of the living. I feel like everything seeth in the land of the living. But a lot of people say that the Lord seeth not, the Lord has forsaken the earth. And I say everything seeth in the land of the living. So I think the land of the living is like everything seeth us. I mean, it's not only that God doesn't see everything, God sees everything as well, but everything sees everything. All the things that are not of the land of the living, I think in the land of the living is very scrutinized, it's very seen, it's very noticeable, it's very understood and reflected upon. It's not that God doesn't see it, God sees it, and everything else sees it too. And so everything that we do, everything seeth. This is the opposite of what's reality, this idea that God isn't seeing, God has forsaken the earth. And it's like, no way, man, the earth is like the main, or is like a huge point of contention, I feel like, at least from my understanding. I'm trying to find the exact verse of it. Yeah, here's a second one. There's two of them. It says, Then said unto me, Son of man, hast thou seen what the ancients of the house of Israel do in the dark, every man in the chambers of his imagination? For they say, The Lord seeth us not, the Lord has forsaken unto me. Or the Lord seeth us not, the Lord has forsaken the earth. And so this is the second time it says it, but then there's another verse too where he says it too. And it's not too far away from that, but I don't want to spend too much time looking for it. But I really do like that verse. I just think that it just shows how silly people are sometimes, and where they can get to when they make the wrong choices and they embrace deception. They can get to a point where they think that God sees them not, and that God has forsaken the earth, when it's so far away from the actual reality of things, where everything is seen here. But somehow they convince themselves that nothing is seen here when everything is seen here, and like hardcore. Yeah, but yeah, so that's the reading this week. I try to keep it, this video is getting kind of long, but I try to keep it around this time, so I'm going to let everyone go. And so, I appreciate everyone that's watching this, and, sorry that my presentation is not always the best. I got a lot to do, and I work a lot, and I get pretty tired, but I try to pull through for these videos and do the best that I can. Maybe one day I could be a little bit more presentable and a little bit more entertaining and have a little more energy on these videos and speak a little more clear, but I'm working on it. Anyway, God bless and happy truth seeking.